Good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to this session, the fourth session, SWT of Pharmaceuticals in Cancer Care. So Indian pharma companies are world-renowned for producing cancer generic drugs at a lower cost, thus increasing access both domestically and globally. There are emerging concerns about the quality, regulations, ethics, and global competitiveness. And there is a recent Hindu article day before yesterday that titles "Chemotherapy Drugs Made by Indian Firms Fail Quality Test" in the latest edition. So hence to discuss and deliberate, we have our moderator, Advocate Prashant Reddy, who will lead the session along with the eminent panelists who will pitch in with their valuable sights. Advocate Prashant Reddy is a distinguished legal scholar and a practitioner, and is educated at the National Law School of India and Stanford Law School. He is the co-author to the book The Truth Pill. He is a prolific writer, and his insightful work extensively covers intellectual property law, the regulatory landscape of the pharmaceutical industry, and judicial reforms in India.
Next, we invite the session panelist, Mr. Ashish Kumar, Senior Vice President, Zydus Life Sciences, with 2 decades of experience in pharmaceutical industry. He has held key leadership roles in India's Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, and Amgen portfolios in the past. Dr. Manoj Kumar, Executive Vice President, India's Pharmaceuticals, Accord Healthcare. He spearheads the oncology, plasma therapy, and rare disease portfolio. He is a published researcher, having authored 10 research articles in the field of management. Dr. Monica Puri, Chief Country Access and Policy Officer, Roche Pharma India. She has experience as a medical doctor and public health specialist. She has held key roles like Global Ambassador for the G20 and G7 Health and Development Partnership, and is a former member of B20 Brazil Task Force.
Up next is Dr. Mansoor Koyakuti. He is a professor in Amrita Center for Nanosciences and Molecular Medicine. He is a specialist in cancer nanomedicine and immunotherapy. He holds a PhD degree in nanomedicine with 32 international patents and is an associate editor of the journal Precision Nanomedicine. He is recognized with numerous awards, including DRDO Scientist of the Year and Marie Curie Fellowship. Dr. Ruby John Anto, she's the Chief Scientist, Center of Excellence in Nutraceuticals, Government of Kerala, and Honorary Scientist at the Institute of Advanced Virology. Her special focus is on cancer cell targeting therapies and bioprospecting for natural products with anti-cancer potential, including Utracide B, which has received orphan drug designation from the US FDA for liver cancer. And Dr. Arun Warrior, who's a Senior Medical Oncologist and the Head of the Department of Medical Oncology in Aster Medicity, Kochi. He has over 15 years of experience in comprehensive cancer care. He's trained in the premier institutes in India as well as abroad. He's adept in managing complex cases through a multidisciplinary approach utilizing advanced diagnostic methods, genomic risk stratification, molecular targeted therapy, and immunotherapy. He has key interest in gastrointestinal oncology as well. So with this, I hand over the mic to Advocate Prashant to start the session.
Thank you. So our session coordinators were Dr. Rahul Ravind and Dr. Thomas Babu. Thank you for introducing the moderator and panelist. Over to them.
Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah. Sorry. To the audience, we request to please keep your voice low. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I mean, as a lawyer, I generally don't spend too much time in medical conferences, but it's been fascinating. I noticed a little bit trepidation in our pre-conference WhatsApp group that I would turn this into a pharma bashing session, but I assure you that's not the point of this. We want to have a candid discussion on some of the issues that I've heard from doctors about pharma. I mean, the pharma industry at the end of the day is one of the biggest stakeholders in healthcare. They've revolutionized innovation over the last century, especially in oncology. And Indian pharma has played a very big role in making all kinds of drugs, especially oncology drugs, more affordable by bringing in generics and biosimilars, which are very difficult to manufacture, from what I'm told. I just want to, so there are 3 themes that I was hoping that we could cover. One being quality and cost. There's a bit of an intersection over there. And the third will be innovation, especially the challenges of innovation in India. Let me start off with the issue of quality, because it's been in the news recently. As Dr. Rahul had pointed out, the Hindu had reported Indian generics, especially chemo drugs, failing in Africa at an alarming rate. The study was published in, I think, Lancet Global. It was by a group of researchers from the University of Notre Dame, and 16 of the 17 companies implicated in that study were Indian. Let me start off with a very simple issue of whether Indian generics are equivalent to innovators. The reason I ask this is because in 2023, when the National Medical Commission came out with a mandate for doctors to prescribe drugs only by generic names, there was an outcry and they had to pull back. This mandate is still applicable in central government hospitals though. Now, just to go behind the scenes and explain a little bit about the science of similarity in the pharmaceutical industry, for small molecule drugs, when generics were allowed in the US in 1984 with the Hatch-Waxman Act, one of the conditions was that a generic manufacturer would have to prove that their drug was bioequivalent to the innovator drug. This basically involves testing the drug on a group of healthy volunteers, say about 30 or 40 volunteers, and measuring the rate at which the drug is dissolving in their bloodstream and urine. So if the dissolution rate is similar to the innovator drug, it's said to be bioequivalent, and hence the generic can be interchangeable with the innovator. The problem in India is the Indian government brought in bioequivalence regulations very late. It brought it in only in 2017, and even then the regulation is very poorly drafted. We don't know whether it applies retrospectively, prospectively. So it's not like Indian pharma is not capable of making bioequivalent drugs. They do it all the time for foreign markets. It's just that the government didn't make it mandatory, and even after they made it mandatory, we don't know. As you as a doctor today do not know which generics in the market are bioequivalent to the innovator or not. And I suppose that plays into some of these, some of the pushback that we see from doctors when it comes to prescribing generic drugs. But now, having said that, I'd like Dr. Warrior perhaps to start with telling us, as an oncology practitioner in India, where there's so much pressure on, the factor of cost for doctors prescribing these drugs, what are the challenges that you face with prescribing generic drugs specifically?
So I think this is a routine scenario which plays out in our OPs daily. So suppose there is one drug, and the cost of, there are three options for them. One is a very low cost one. I will put as maybe around 18,000. The second is intermediate around 40,000. The other may be the innovator around 60,000. I'm not naming the drug, but this is how it usually goes. And the patient asks us, doctor, which one do you want us to take? So in many cases, they may not be able to afford, and then that is fine. But if they are able to afford, then they ask us, why is the cost is so different? And which one will you? So it's a very tough job which we go through daily. So again, we really don't know what is the financial background, affordability, just a hunch we have, and based on that we just explain to them, and you take this. So, and again, the back of my mind, I know that then we tell them that why this is costly is because the trials were done with that, and that is why it is expensive. And to do a trial, if the patient is really in corporate, and there are some people who really go into depths of that, then we try to explain that to get this one drug, they have to spend 400, and then we have ways in to reproduce that, and it is allowed in India. And why the question, then the question will be, why among the Indian drugs there is a lot of cost differences there. Then we just tell them that, that's how it's basically that's how the market runs. People market at different costs, and I can't answer that. So really we have to stop there. I don't think we can go further, and we leave it to the patient to decide.
But as a practitioner, how do you take a call? I mean, do you have your favorite generics amongst a group of, it's a crowded market out there for some of them. How do you make your treatment decision, and how do you do your research?
Basically, if you look at corporate chains, they have a way in which they look at a lot of what is the background things and all. So I know how the drug checking goes. So it's just a random checking. Any of the Indian things are, you do a random checking, that's all. That they do on a lot, they do. That's what I understood also. The Indian regulations is that you do a random check, and that's enough. And standard companies have a way in which each lot is checked. But in many other companies, they don't have that. That's what I understood. Because it's it's not when I speak to the pharma people and all, it's the feedback which I get from them. And I went to the official site of the CDSC and there also it is very clearly given it's only random checking is enough for them. So it's not an easy job for me. So again, I have been in this field for 10 to 15 years. I look at what my other colleagues are writing, what the standard people are doing, and I know the hospital chains have their way of finding out the quality. And they shortlist some 4 or 5 companies, and so I believe there. This is basically belief.
So it's belief. A bit worrying to hear that. I mean, especially, generics in oncology, I think, are especially tricky because when it comes to, say, diabetes and blood pressure, there you have personal diagnostics. A patient can check in his house basically whether, and figure out whether a drug is working or not. I guess with oncology, it's far more difficult. Can I ask Dr. Kumar and Mr. Kumar, since both of you are from, sorry, my bad. Mr. Kumar and Dr. Kumar, if you could tell us, how are Indian doctors to figure out which is the best generic when there is such a crowded market out there? And I think even you will agree with me that not all of them are of the same quality in India. How should an oncology doctor go about picking out the best generic? And what can pharma companies do to give doctors better information about the quality of a generic? If I can just give you an example, in the US, the US FDA publishes what is called the Orange Book, where the US FDA certifies which of those generics are bioequivalent to the innovator. Our government doesn't do anything like that, which makes the job of doctors like Dr. Warrior a lot more difficult. So if you could please give us a few insights and on the issue.
Sure. Thanks, Prashant. First of all, thanks for making me part of this elite group. Now, coming to the question in mind, I think if we have to look at the US perspective first, I'll come to India later. The day patent expires, I'm talking about the product patent, and say the exclusivity of drug A in oncology is going away in US. We know that maybe in 6 to 8 months, 90% of the market share would siphon off. And who would take that? Maybe companies from India, most of the times, right? Because we have been the one to file first in the Orange Book, get the 180 days exclusivity, and after that, we know that multiple generic player comes in. But all of them, even if there are, say, 20 generics in US, all of them are approved by FDA. And they are approved after they have done the bioequivalence, they have done the dissolution study, they have submitted the CMC. Right? So all these things happen for one and the first who gets the 180 days exclusivity, and also the 20th or maybe the 25th. Now, if I come to India, I think we are very good in this space of new drug. When I say new drug, I don't mean new chemical entity. Say there is an oncology drug. Say we launched Letermovir very recently. The multinational was not there in India. Now, if I have to introduce this drug in India, I'll have to go to DCGI. I'll have to do bioequivalence. I'll have to do the dissolution studies. I have to do everything which the FDA requires for an oncology drug to do. But say a drug which is 4-year-old, that means the innovator was already there in the country, was marketing the drug for 4 years or more, then I need not go to DCGI. I probably go to local FDA. I need not do bioequivalence or probably those studies which the DCGI asks me to do for the new drug, and probably I can get it to the market. That is where I feel there is a small loophole. And there might be differences in the number of generics which are available on the quality part. So I think a simple solution there would be to have the regulation up, and whether it is the new drug or whether it is a drug which is already there in the country for 4 years or more, the practice of approving that drug, the regulations of approving that drug should be same. I think if we do that, we will not see what we probably saw in the media a few days back, or probably these doubts would never come. When Indian companies can go to US and get the 90% share in few days or few months, why can't we do that in India as well? So I think that is something I would want to put forward.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for that reply. Just to elaborate a little bit more, the FOIA thing that Mr. Kumar was explaining, in India, the way it works is the first time a drug is approved in the market, for the first 4 years, you have to go to the DCGI to get your approval. That's the Drug Controller General of India, who's a part of the national government. After 4 years, you can go to any state drug controller and get an approval. And that's where things get really murky because no one knows what is happening at a lot of these places. Dr. Pramesh, you had a question to ask?
Yeah, Ashish, I don't mean to put you in a spot, but given the recent controversy that's happened and the fact that the narrative goes that Indian pharma is bad, it's not that 8 companies out of the hundreds that we have in India are bad. Isn't it time that the OPPI or the Pharmaceutical Association took a stronger stance on quality and self-regulated, given the fact that the government regulations are not stringent enough? Because it's companies, good companies like yours and others, which are actually getting painted by the same brush that the fly-by-night operators did.
So, totally agree with what you said. I think when the information would come out in the media, they would say Indian generics. And then you're putting on spot everybody out there, somebody who is practicing to the best of extent and somebody probably who is taking a shorter step. I think the responsibility has to be shared while the OPPI and these regulators can come up. But I think I would like to quote an example of NCG. Now, if we are seeing in National Cancer Grid that if a product is getting shortlisted, they have to probably showcase these many documents and all the tests which they have done to develop the drug. Now, we are talking about what came in the media about Africa. I think what was the criteria? I was discussing with him only price, right? So I think at times maybe when you are in pursuit of just bringing the cost to the lowest point, maybe the shortcuts are done. Why do we allow that? Pharma has to take that responsibility, regulators have to take the responsibility, the people who are selecting the product have to take the responsibility. I think it is everybody's responsibility, otherwise Indian pharma, which is doing the good work, is also getting shamed because of what is happening. So I totally agree, sir. I think it is everybody's responsibility and the regulations have to go up because pharma is not maybe OTC kind of a thing where maybe you can manufacture anything and get the product on the market. Totally agree.
No, I agree it has to be multi-stakeholder, but I think at every point, we as purchasers, pharma as the people who actually get affected by a scandal like this, as well as the regulators. Absolutely. And it's not just Africa which looks at L1. Many progressive states in India look for L1 without looking for quality.
I think, Dr. Vimesh, this is Dr. Manoj here. First of all, must compliment the kind of work that you are doing in your space. I think that is one of the best way to procure a medicine. I think they have seen what you were wishing, and while we speak, the OPPI and IP are taking cognizance of these so-called publications. And I'm happy that a session before this was on media and engagement like this. Couple of points. Nobody is debating that what got published should not be, but it should be read much more deeper. Just 2-3 points on this. 10 months of data analysis to collect 251 sample. What actually happened? Which means less than 1 sample per day. By the time the goods reached the university, 25% of the goods had already expired. In addition to this, they took only 7 neoplastic drug out of 79 which you procure in your list. The maximum deviation happened on cyclophosphamide, if you go into the micrograph. If you go further, sir, there are some affiliations which is towards the multinational. So somewhere down the line, it has just come out. A deeper exercise is round the corner. Even in the sampling collection method, doctor, 25% of them from an institute and 75% of the samples were from standalone clinic center. So these are some of the observations which we have kind of analyzed, and we will interpret it, and at suitable time we'll come back with submissions.
It would be great if Dr. Puri also could respond. See, because every time we start talking about quality in India, this multinational issue comes up or anti-national issue comes up. But this is exactly my point, right? There is the strongest evidence that there is a quality problem in India is the revolt by doctors to the National Medical Commission's mandate that they prescribe drugs only by the generic name. This, in other countries, in the US and all, doctors do prescribe by the generic name, right? So why is it that Indian doctors are so hesitant? That is because they have seen with their eyes during the course of their treatment that there are issues with quality. We can't run away from that now. So, on this multinational, anti-national issue, because we saw this happened actually 10 years ago. There was a study funded by the National Bureau of Economic Research in the US, where a group of American academics picked up Indian drugs from Africa, and they reported higher rates of failure than other jurisdictions. So it's basically a lot of bad players know that Africa is not a regulated market, and they were sending their products there. What was the response of the Indian government and industry? They threatened to sue those researchers for defamation. Now, you can't have a proper debate like that when it comes to drug quality. But Dr. Puri, please.
Sure. Thanks. First of all, although I sit here in the capacity of representing a multinational company, but I'm going to speak more on behalf of being a doctor myself, and I'll tell you why. Regulatory pathways have been close to my heart. I've been part of the WHO Southeast Asia Health System Development Group when the CERN network was coming up for the Southeast Asian countries. I think sitting here in India, it's not a question of being anti-national or pro-national. Because if any multinational is invested in a company for more than 50 years, 60 years, it's not a question of anti-nationalism. It's a question of making sure that patients sitting in India get the same drug of the same quality, same efficacy and safety, whether it is in the western part of the world or the eastern. And now coming to the quality, I really liked, Sir had mentioned this question, why don't you take it up with OPPI in itself? I think the responsibility starts from us. And I'll tell you why. You mentioned about bioequivalence study, and 2017 was when it got implemented. But if you look at the bioequivalence studies and the labeling under Rule 96 which is done, it's still very hazy. So what does it take for government to do that? I think as a responsible pharmaceutical organization, whether you are generic, whether you are multinational, why don't you voluntarily, transparently share your bioequivalence study? What does it take? If you are so sure that you have followed all the standards of safety, quality, efficacy, the power of your bioequivalence study was as good as the real biological product, what does it take to share your data? I think the problem lies when we don't go and voluntarily share the data. And then we go and ask the regulator that CDCSO has approved it, why do you have a problem? Because if you look at the guidelines of CDSCO, DCGI also, even the biosimilar guidelines that have just come up, are they legally binding enough? The quality of study, the power of the study it is talking about, the randomized clinical trial arm between a comparator and a new entity, is this really being followed? How are the regulatory approvals done basis that is something that we need to ask. It is very easy to say that government should take an action. How many times are we actually telling a patient, and how many times as a doctor myself and all of us in a med school were trained that this is how a generic study or any comparative randomized control trial being done. Most of the time we're all looking at PSM, community medicine department, to come and give support. But as a clinician, how many times have we really followed that? So I think what it requires is a lot of voluntary transparency to share study. At the same time, the patients and doctors training also to know what are you going to be prescribed, what are the actual real-time evidence available of the generic and the innovative drug to say, yes, this has a better efficacy. And a clinical effectiveness of a drug is more important than just the efficacy which is done in phase 2. And last point, post-marketing surveillance. How many times that PMS data have been looked in to really say that the signals were picked up very early, and those signals were taken up by the generic companies and the real-time action was taken. So I'm just bringing in the perspective that it's always easy to blame the government and they should lift the system. But what are we doing as a responsible organization to make it happen?
But Dr. Puri, I guess the issue with disclosing data, and a lot of innovator companies also don't disclose data because they consider it a trade secret, right?
think I'm talking about the study part. I'm not talking about the manufacturing process here. I'm talking about the studies, the bioequivalent studies where we are doing, which is different from the trade secrets, which is part of the patented law.
So you had a question?
Yeah. So I have 2 points to make. I'm a medical oncologist into practice for last 18 years, and I have deep interest in this drug approvals. So I'll give 2 examples. One is a simple drug like paclitaxel, which is a basic chemo drug. We have at least 300 odd companies making paclitaxel in India. And let me share the facts with you. If you have close to 10 lakh rupees, you can yourself make a company, because to make 250 vial batch of paclitaxel, you just require 4-5 lakhs and another 4-5 lakhs to get an approval. So the problem here is that as a treating doctor, I don't know out of those 250 or 300 odd companies which are making paclitaxel, which one is good, which one is bad. And if as a doctor who is in practice for 18 years, I don't know how I'll expect patients to know that which one is good and which one is bad. So Indian pharmaceutical industry has to put a stop to this. It is as simple as that. Anybody can with 10 lakhs can make paclitaxel in India, which is the fact. So first thing suggestion is that the way we have ratings or gradings, say if you want to go to a restaurant, you see on Zomato what is the rating or what is the 5-star hotel. Same way, the Indian pharmaceutical industry start grading the pharma companies, and these are the ones which are grade A or A+, and their products you should use. That's the first solution.
They'll sue each other for defamation if you...
No. Someone has to take a responsibility that, no, some company which is just made 6 months back cannot make chemo drugs, something of that. So some regulation has to be there. That's the first thing. And second thing, regarding our approval process, if you see the American approval process, FDI meetings, ODAC meetings, they are live broadcasted. Yep. You can actually see them on YouTube. You can actually see the documents are published beforehand. Today, if I wanted to go and find out a biosimilar which has come up in market, what is his clinical equivalence data, what is his post-marketing data, and on what data DCG has given approval or CDSCO has given approval, I go to their websites, I cannot find it. All I see is the minutes of meeting where they say that it is discussed, it is approved. Why it is approved?
Words,
it is absolutely not available at all. And that is the difference. In US, they do live broadcast. That means everything is shared beforehand. FDA comes. Yes, so that is the problem. And these 2 things needs to be changed. We cannot ask any Tom, Dick and Harry who can make chemotherapy drugs. That has to be stopped. And the transparency has to come in approval. It has to be absolutely transparent that this is the data, it is published on the website, anybody can go and read it.
Absolutely, so I agree with you. Transparency is a huge problem. There are too many, see the problem in India is the SME sector, especially in pharma, the small and medium enterprises, they are politically very powerful. Like I have seen government records where they have stopped crucial regulations, including making stability testing compulsory for small molecules, on the grounds that the SME sector pushed back. So that is a valid concern. But I just want to get to the biosimilars point quickly. If we can just take it ahead a little bit. Just to give the audience a little bit background about biosimilars. So biosimilars are copies of biologics. These are large molecules. They are manufactured in living organisms, so they are not identical to the innovator product, as a result of which they are required to go through their own clinical trials. And biosimilars are very, very difficult to manufacture. It takes a remarkable degree of R&D effort. I was just hearing Mr. Kumar from Zydus saying that they have spent about a decade trying to develop some of these biosimilars. And both Zydus and Intas have been very successful in launching biosimilars. Now, from the viewpoint of oncology practitioners, biosimilars are very, very important because they will bring in competition into the market, and that will reduce prices, because otherwise these are very expensive drugs. And it's very important that we get the regulatory system for biosimilars right, which is not happening. There's a lot of litigation between the people on this panel. We won't get into the details of that. But again, I'd like Dr. Warrior to start and give us a practitioner's perspective on what exactly, like how confident are you in biosimilars, and do you distinguish when it comes to prescribing an innovator product or a biosimilar manufactured by Indian General?
So I think the issue we had to go back to what I told initially. because again, we don't have real data, because if we look at the NCCN and all, if there is a bioequivalent, biosimilar is that they will write what is a clone, there will be small letters will be there. On that clone, they are marketing. At that point, it is approved. So it's very clear there. Here, we don't get data like that. So again, I have to go back to my belief part, because like we discussed here, there is no concrete data is not available out there. So again, which are the trusted companies we have to look at. The other issue in oncology is that really, if you want to use one drug and to show it, like most of them, it is combined with chemotherapy. So, and the patient also response will be different. So that is again was something which patient asked us, whether, doctor, do you think this is going to act or not? That again is not easy from a clinician point of view to tell, because we are usually using these things in combination with others. But one good thing is that among these biosimilars, like a lot of companies are not there. It is usually the standard companies which launch these drugs. And sometimes we have seen, particularly they have one drug and all, Zydus and all, which no one else could come out with that for the last many years. So it is really tough to use. And again, people keep telling this, and suddenly one fine time you see a lot of things, like one Octotide, one brand was there, which was very less, and it was very difficult to manufacture. That's what the information we were getting. But now, the last 1 year also, a lot of companies have come out with that. So how to really believe that is, because again, pharma, it's a business, we understand that. But then the transparency has to come from pharma also. That's what I feel. Regulators, we are not getting that. Pharma, and again, the price part also. Because people tend to believe that the more price it is better. But whether that is correct or not, we don't know. Because we again know through some way that this is the real cost with their, which they can give at the least price. And sometimes we see that this real cost and the MRP, the margin is so huge. And when the drug price, when DPCO came out, it is still there for many of the drugs. We are very happy, because the DPCO will at least make some sense, because everything is a level playing field. And because of DPCO, many innovators went out. That's a different thing. But at least there will be a way which we will be able to, we will be able to tell. But that is not happened to other drugs. And people are coming out with some different strengths to beat the DPCO. So that is also a challenge.
Okay, Mr. Kumar, can you tell us if today you could tell the government to make some particular regulation now, at least for biosimilars, what would your recommendation be? What should doctors be asking for to ensure a more credible regulatory framework for biosimilars?
See, I think if we look at what India adopted in 2016, India adopted the biosimilar guidelines of FDA, right? So, and I was also reading one of the paper published by you, which had one example of a biosimilar which had certain issues, but it was in 2015. So I don't think after 2016 we have had any major issue with any of the biosimilars, and the biosimilar guidelines which are there in India, they are not optional, they are binding. Even if they are not binding, the approval system which has been put place in India will make sure that the biosimilar which gets approved in India has followed through every step which is there. And mind you, this is same guidelines as is recommended by the FDA as well. So I think the FDA, the biosimilar guidelines are well in place. Coming to Dr. Warrior's point, now if I have to give you example of the latest biosimilar which we introduced into the Indian market, and Doctor was also mentioning about the data. Before the product was in market, the publication in one of the leading journals in the world on the phase 3 data was already published, right? So as Dr. Puri was also mentioning, I think the responsibility lies on the pharma. I totally feel and believe in the biosimilar guidelines of India. I think they are well in place. Rather, I feel they are now more harsher, because as I was mentioning to you, UK MHRA as well as EMA are going away from phase 3 studies of biosimilar. They are saying that if you have done the preclinical, you have done PKPD, you have done the physical, secondary, tertiary analysis of the biosimilar, spend over 6.5, 7 years, what are you going to prove by doing phase 3? And UK MHRA might become the first body regulation to probably take away phase 3. What we are doing in India, after doing phase 3, now we are asking for the biosimilars to go to National Institute of Biotechnology, Noida, to further do an analysis and confirm and stamp that yes, you are biosimilar. So we are on the North Pole, actually the world is moving on the South Pole. So rather on the point that our biosimilar guidelines are not sufficient, I think today they are one of the most stringent guidelines across the globe. Their phase 3 requirement might be lesser than the US and Europe, but then as I said, US and Europe is saying that get away from phase 3.
Yeah, just to add to what Ashish said, I think this probably would be a reversal role where India biosimilar guidelines will be followed by Europe. My Accord team keeps talking about it, that they are waiting for this regulation to come down to Europe. Having said that, we also need to understand the whole thing in totality. And I'll quote you some figures. Before the biosimilar, let's say for trastuzumab came in, the total breast cancer prescription of trastuzumab and actual uses was close to 30%. This is not my data, this is an institute data. And today almost 80 to 90% of the patient who deserves it gets it. So there is a reason why biosimilar version has come in after giving enough due to intellectual property timelines. That means respecting the patent. It is very painful when somebody needs it and is not able to afford it, doesn't get it, and somebody just gets it, and those are those 10%. So there is a rationale why biosimilar or branded generic companies do exist in India. Answering Dr. Amol's question, you asked that it is very tough. I think when NDAC sits, when SEC sits, it is a very tough questions they ask, and it is a representative consultants from great institutes such as Tata, Rajiv Gandhi, Safdarjung, AIMS, who sit in those panels, and they are all medical oncologists who ask us tough questions. So somewhere down the line, the very fact that trained clinicians sit on board is also taken care of. So that's my submission.
Dr. Puri, could you just give us your viewpoint on biosimilars? Because you are the leading innovator, Roche is the leading innovator in this space, and there's a lot of tension that we can see playing out in the courts.
Because you mentioned trastuzumab, and of course we always take a lot of pride, because trastuzumab was the first ever humanized monoclonal antibody developed by Roche. And it has been a game changer for breast cancer across the globe. So, and trastuzumab is still available, the original also. Let me tell you that. I'm coming to the point of biosimilar guidelines. It is good that we have guidelines. It is great that guidelines are updated in 2025. Still final stamping is there. But my point is in the nuances of the guidelines, and I'll tell you why. In the guidelines, it is great that we are talking about phase 3 trials. But how is this phase 3 trial data is extrapolated is very important. I mentioned about the power of study. I mentioned about randomization. Post-immunogenicity, which is very critical for monoclonal antibodies. It's not even part of the guidelines. Is it not important to look at post-immunogenicity of this biologically similar products once they are in the market, used by patients, and what is the finding of that? It's very important to include that. Then power of the study should be mandated. I'll just give you one very basic example. Aspirin has a side effect of muscular cramping and pain. If I say 10 out of 100 patients are getting cramping versus I say 10 out of 1 lakh patients are getting muscular cramp, you understand the difference. You know why? Because then you know how severe the side effect is. And how do we determine that? By power of study. What are you comparing with the number of patients? And sir, you mentioned about education of doctors, and that is why it is very important. How the products, how the side effects, how the phase 3 trial was designed and randomized is very, very important when it talks about the efficacy of drug. And most importantly, more than efficacy is the clinical performance of the drug, which is not even talked about, because the entire phase 3 is talked about comparing the efficacy. And fourth point, again in the guidelines, we talk about reference biological product, which is the original product. And whenever a new indication is coming up for a biosimilar, ideally, even for that new indication, if the RBP product has not done a phase 3 should be done for the biosimilar, because it's a newer indication which was not explored in the original product. So nowhere any pharma multinational company underestimates the power of a biosimilar in solving for larger access. But important question is, if only enough rigor and patient trust has been maintained, talking about the safety, efficacy and quality. It's not about generics, it's not about biosimilars, it's about quality assured similar biologics that should be focused on, and rather than making a law or a regulation and say it's been followed, but these are the nuances, and that's why again the question that doctors are that first point of contact, because they are the researchers and they are the one who need to know all this when it comes to approving even a biosimilar study.
I guess, the takeaway is more transparency would solve a lot of these issues. Dr. Pramesh?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly respond to something that Dr. Warrior mentioned about the DPCO. Let me start by saying I don't own a single share of pharma companies. But I think one of the worst things that's happened in India has been the DPCO. We had an extensive discussion on this, and the result of the price control has actually been that the prices of these drugs have been capped at such unrealistic costs that most of the good companies manufacturing it have gone out of the market because they find it unviable. They'll actually run into losses if they were to go by the price control, which means that for drugs like L-asparaginase, vincristine, ifosfamide, critical drugs, old, out-of-patent drugs, we don't have good companies manufacturing it anymore. And I think that's a shortage that we've brought upon ourselves. I'm a big fan of reducing prices. I think the key to reducing prices is encouraging competition, and we've done that very successfully with the pooled procurement with the NCG. The mean reduction in cost from the NCG pooled procurement is 85% from MRP. So a 100 rupee tablet costs actually 15 rupees if you procure it purely by competition. Having artificial price controls just drives good companies out of the market.
Yeah, price controls are one of these great paradoxes of Indian economics, where the government boasts that we have the most competitive pharma industry, and they also want price control at the same time. Like economically, it makes no sense, but it's a political imperative. They will be torched the day that they say that we're going to take off the DPCO. But anyway, now let's get on to the innovation part. I have not forgotten about Dr. Manzoor and Dr. Anto here. Dr. Manzoor, so one of the ways to just bring down prices is to have more innovation, better innovation, especially in India. We've seen China, the biotech space is booming. There are big pharma companies signing up to license molecules, etc., from Chinese startups. Could you tell us a little bit, and then after that, Dr. Anto, about your experiences of being researchers in India? What are the obstacles that you're facing, and what can the government do to improve life generally for researchers in India?
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity, and I think I should thank my friend Ajju to give me an opportunity to come here as a basic researcher to share this. So we were, of course, patiently waiting for these generic discussions to end, and then innovator take that opportunity to speak. And I think fundamentally that is the trouble. I was just thinking, it is very funny, very pathetic, in fact. If you look at it, this discussion itself, see, we are copying someone else's invention. Like after 20 years, we are waiting for 20 years to copy it. And we are not able to even properly copy it. We are discussing about the quality of generic drugs. The funny part is that even for that generic drug quality, we don't have an Indian inside system to check that quality. We are waiting for an international group to study the quality of Indian generic drugs and tell us, look, you guys are not able to reproduce it properly.
Because you do it in India, you'll be called anti-national.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate actually if you think about it, And second point, in an 1 hour discussions, we get the last 10 minutes for innovators to speak.
Minutes. You have 20 minutes, they're all yours.
Yeah.
I won't give the mic to anybody.
This is all right. But something serious for us to think. At least we innovators are getting a space in an oncology meeting, so that itself is a good sign. So the subject of today's SWOT analysis about what are the strength, weakness, and opportunity, threat. So I would like to put up in that line about what is the strength of our nation as a country. in terms of innovation. Okay, I think the major strength is our manpower. We have extraordinary bright people. You know, if you look at it globally, if you rate Indian brain, we are at par with any international, race or anything. So we have amazing talent in the country. That is one of the greatest strength we have. Second one is that if you look at research infrastructure, R&D, these are very serious things. Why we are relying on generic drugs? Why innovation is not happening in this country, even though you have some of the best brains, and we have extraordinary infrastructure. If you look at the infrastructure point of view, like R&D research labs, even in Trivandrum, you can look at RGCB and RCC. So many institutions in Trivandrum itself for a drug discovery. You have enough equipment, everything is there, everything is there. Second thing is, we used to initially tell that there is no government support, there is no sufficient funding for innovation. That is absolutely wrong. I am a personal example of that. For example, I am not a medical researcher, I am not even a biology researcher, I am a nanotechnologist working in the area of cancer nanotechnology. Last 15 years at Amrita, we got 80 crore Indian rupees, 80 crore investment purely from the government, DST, DBT and ICMR, to do research in Amrita. Amrita is a private institution, imagine. It's a private institution. I am a fringe kind of researcher. I am not a core biology cancer researcher. Even I could manage 80 crore Indian rupees to do research. That means you have plenty of money government is giving to do research, innovate, and do whatever innovators want to do. So we cannot complain to the government and we cannot complain to the system. Now comes, where is the problem? What is the weakness? Let us look at it. These are all the strengths. What is the weakness? Weakness is, again, that is not there in our gene, basically. We are very comfortable copycats.
So the
We are so
risk-taking...
comfortable in copycats. Like you're all medical oncologist. I am sure that you're very comfortable in practicing what you learned. You're not comfortable in practicing what you never learned. Innovation comes from practicing something you never learned and nobody taught you. That is where innovation starts. How many of the medical oncologists sitting here have a patent on a cancer drug target? If I'll ask you. I know there are extraordinary bright doctors, medical practitioners, researchers. If you look at it, how many innovative drug patents we have in this country? We are in the comfort zone of practicing what we know and not able to practice what we don't know, or not able to innovate something out of the box. I think that is in our gene. We have to.
But why? Why is it that Indian doctors go abroad and do so well?
Exactly.
Clearly the genes is not the problem.
I am in Johns Hopkins right now. Okay. I am a Fulbrighter in Johns Hopkins. So this is the point I want to come, especially with my friends like Ajju and all. When I am discussing I'm a basic science researcher, sitting with the oncologist in Hopkins, extraordinary discussions happens. They said that this is what they want, this is what they want, this is the kind of molecule we want. They are the guys the oncologist telling, this is the challenge in front of us in treating the patient and how we can work together to discover a new drug. This is not happening here. There is no communication between the clinicians, the medical oncologists or surgical oncologists, and the basic science researchers like me. For example, my best friend Ajju, again I go back a reference to Ajju. If I had to talk a scientific talk or a clinical talk with Ajju, although we great friends, I had to put him in some locker or something, somewhere, arrest him and put it into some jail, then say that, Ajju, let us talk. I have 43 patents in cancer nanomedicine. All these patents came from my interactions with the doctors like Wesley, Pavitran, Dr. Pavitran, Dr. Dilip Panikar, Dr. Moni Kuriakos must be sitting here. My initial work started with Dr. Moni Kuriakos. Unless you guys are available ready to sit with researchers like me and Dr. Ruby. Ruby's molecule is in clinical trial in US. My innovations, I had to move from Amrita to Johns Hopkins to start a clinical trial. Second major point I want to make, being industry sitting here. There is no, see, again, I come back to 40 patents. We had to go behind a majority of Indian companies, begging them, please take some of these innovations and do a clinical trial. They were not ready. They are not ready. Representatives are sitting here. Indian industry is spoiled by the kind of money they are making with the generic drugs.
No, but that, it's actually across the board. There are studies which show that R&D spends in Indian industry, whether it's pharma, petroleum, electronics, is way below global average. So it's just not a pharma problem. I think it's cutting across Indian industry.
Yeah. But if I have to do a clinical trial from an innovative product which we developed and optimized and did animal studies and stuff like that, industry need to come in and take it up. Without industry ready to put some money, at least to do a phase 1 clinical trial, none of these innovative drugs move forward. So that is a major challenge which we have. Then the regulator, I stop this with this point. A regulator. Regulators are pretty illiterate about innovative drugs, how to move an innovative drugs forward. Example I can tell you. Sorafenib is a molecule. Majority of the clinicians practice it, sorafenib. We developed a nanoparticle of sorafenib to enhance oral bioavailability and reduce the toxicity at Amrita. One of the main patent we pushed. We asked a pre-IND question to the regulators that, see, sorafenib is a well-known molecule. It's PKPD known, toxicology known, everything is known, nothing new. We just asked, we could improve this molecule. Now, what are the kind of studies we should do, toxicity study we should do to do a clinical trial, phase 1 clinical trial? It took 12 months to get a response. Even after sending so many mails, finally we had to call our Suresh Gopi, our actor and politician, to influence DCGI to get us a reply. So that is a pathetic situation of the regulators as far as innovative drugs. Having said all these things, I should also mention some silver lining. For example, CAR-T. Our great friend Rahul Purwar could make it. So that means there are silver linings. He could make a very innovative CAR-T, which is engineered T cells, coming from IIT Bombay, a basic science research institute, collaborating with ATRAC, TMH and all. We could translate it. That means it is possible.
But the regulator is not making things easy. I've heard this even from innovators making new cell therapies in Bangalore, where the regulator is just not able to adapt to deal with these new technologies.
They don't know. Actually, it is not adapting. They don't know how to regulate it. So we have to train our regulators, basically.
Okay. Thank you. That was very interesting. Dr. Anto, the last 10 minutes are completely yours. I'm sorry it took so long to come to you.
Yeah, this is a different community, so I will just take the
yes,
PowerPoint.
please.
Yeah,
Please
so that
make a presentation.
I'll walk you through my, even though I am telling this as a success story, it was not really a flower-stone pathway. It was very tough. I did the discovery at Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, and during my entire career for 27 years, I could identify only 3 molecules and 3 combinations. Okay. As Dr. Mansoor told, really we had to struggle to take at least one of the invention to the clinics. So, yeah, this is the plant, Solanum nigrum, we call it Manathakali, and this is the molecule. This is a huge molecule. The molecular weight is 1215. So it is very difficult to synthesize this molecule, and there are many sugar molecules, so they will degrade also, but it can be synthesized. But it is more easy to isolate the molecule from the plant, just like paclitaxel. Okay, paclitaxel also can be synthesized, but it is still being isolated from the bark. So we compared with sorafenib. Sorafenib is the first FDA approved drug against liver cancer. We screened this molecule in different cancer cells, and we found that HepG2 cells, that is liver cancer, was found to be more sensitive. So we continued our study in liver cancer. So this sorafenib is the first FDA approved drug against liver cancer. We compared the molecule with, we can see that this is more active. And the IC50 also, the sorafenib, it is 5.8 micromolar, while utrocyte B is 500 nanomolar. And yeah, so with chloroquine also, the chloroquine is a non-drug against malaria, but it is an autophagy inhibitor also. So this compound induces autophagy. So we found that the combination of both can again improve the activity of utrocyte B. And this is another, liver cancer is induced by non-alcoholic liver cancer also can be there. And aflatoxin is a very good inducer of liver cancer. This is another model. We found that this utrocyte B can remove the aflatoxin-induced liver cancer also. So then we also found that it can reduce the metastasis, lung metastasis of liver cancer and this is NASH. We also studied the efficacy of this molecule in NASH. So this invention was patented in all these countries, and unfortunately we did not get patent in India because according to our regulations, a molecule, an activity cannot be patented. Utrocyte B is already isolated by a group, was way back in 72. They just isolated the molecule, but no activity study was reported. Ours was the first report on the anti-cancer potential of utrocyte B, but we did not get the Indian patent just because it is not, according to the Indian patent rules, the activity cannot be patented. So this invention is, transferred to the US company Q Biomed, and we have signed an MOU with OMRF. That's how we could transfer this technology to Q Biomed, just because with the help of a US institute. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult because of the same reason Dr. Mansoor told. Nobody was, actually I had another patent. 10 years I was paying to maintain the patent. Finally I stopped because no company came. So I thought, why not to, and according to the patent rules, we should not publish the data. Actually my student wanted to publish it first. But when you publish, you cannot patent it. So it was really tough only because our patent officer at Rajiv Gandhi Center was working in the OMRF. That's why we could make it. So it is really tough to take a molecule we identify. This is our molecule. Okay. So many people were telling me why you are giving your invention to the US. But that's why at least it is being studied in the Mayo Clinic. Otherwise, and I superannuated from Rajiv Gandhi Center. If I did not give this invention to the US company, nobody is going to work on that. That is another reason why the good research is not happening. Because I started my lab, settled my lab maybe when I was 45. And when I established my research and I found it to be very active, at 60, I am retiring. And according to the Indian rules, you are not supposed to write a project to any Indian funding agency 3 years before you superannuate. That means I am not allowed. I was not allowed. Now I have been, the Kerala government have given me another position at the Center of Excellence, and now I can write and submit projects. That is the condition. So everybody is digging wells, different places. When you start finding the water, you stop digging, another person starts digging. This is the reason. This is why no good inventions are coming in India. I don't think an Indian scientist in biology will get a Nobel Prize. I don't think, according to the present rules, you will not get. Because when you establish and start flourishing, your research is gone. Okay, now I have to start digging another well, not this well. Okay, so this is the condition. So this should be, getting old is not the, it is not somebody's problem, right? In no other country stops the research just because you are 60. Okay, one of my India-French project was blocked because I was 60, but the other collaborator was 67. French government doesn't have any problem, but the Indian government had problem. So it was stopped. So this, you should find, I don't know how many, maybe you people are, you can practice as long as you live, right? So you don't understand the difficulty. But this is a big problem. A good researcher, for example, a J.C. Bose fellowship, only 25,000 rupees are given to a J.C. Bose fellow, but it is considered as the Indian Nobel Prize. But I was not allowed to apply for it because I was 60. Because then if I get that fellowship, 5 years I have to give the place in my center. So they don't want me to accommodate me for another 5 years. So that is it. So these are the conditions. So it is very, very tough to do good research. Good, I don't know whether it is, I am not insulting anybody. This is the real problem. There should be some, age-related research should be stopped. Okay. Somebody who is interested, only if you can get 25,000 rupees if you do any work, right? Then still, if a person is willing to do that, it is really because of his passion to do research. Okay, so that is what I am telling. So, thank you. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. So we are doing a clinical trial. We cannot do clinical trial with the molecule because it is already sold. So just to answer this question, why you gave your invention to foreign country, I am giving a clinical because we can find the butter extract. Sorry. Yeah. We found the utroside B in the butter extract. So we back calculated. Usually every do the research, extract, then purification, the pure compound. I did the back thing. Okay, how much leaf powder is needed to get this much quantity of utroside B? So 250 milligram leaf powder can give you 5 micromolar, 500 nanomolar utroside B. So we are doing a trial. So with an Ayurveda, in collaboration with an Ayurveda and naturopathy doctors. So we found that the activity is comparable. There is a clinical trial registered in the clinical trial registry of India. So we found that, yeah, this is the first we did a toxicity evaluation.
Dr.
Not
Anto.
toxicity. Okay, sorry.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, we have to wrap up. If you could wrap up in about 30 seconds.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah.
So we could, you can see a reversal of chronic liver disease to grade 1 fatty liver. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It's always heartbreaking to hear, researchers such as yourself, the pains and troubles that you go through in India where the ecosystem has not been set up for R&D. I hope that changes sometime soon. Can we just have a round of closing comments and we can conclude the panel. Mr. Kumar, would you like to start?
I know we are out of time, but maybe I'll just take 15 seconds too, probably because this was heartening to hear from both of the researcher about the innovations and his probably some of the pains he brought in about the India Pharma company. But I think I'll make a comment that if Indians were not good at copying, then maybe the US Medicare system would have collapsed by now. It is because of us that they're able to serve so many patients through our generics. So we are good at that. Why we are not good at innovation? It is not that we are not good at innovation. I think any innovation, any patent has to create a value. The value should be able to be captured. In China, by 2010, there were only 82 drugs which were innovative. I have landed myself here from Shanghai. I was there for last 2 weeks. Today they have 1283 drugs which are getting about to get the phase 3 over, or probably they probably would be out there as an innovative drug across the world. The reason why this happened in China, because China was in same space 2 decades back. In 2015, China made innovation as a strategy. They created 14 bioclusters. But what they did with all the companies that who will do innovation, while they invested in land, invested in capex, supported the clinical trials, but any innovation which came out of China, it was included in what we call a national list of reimbursement drugs. We call them as probably NDRL. What does that mean? Any drug which is getting out of the innovative approach and is from China, you will get the reimbursement on day one, not as per what we do in Ayushman, but probably the way Medicare system works. I'll give you an example of a drug called ensatinib, which is for ALK mutation. When ensatinib was approved in China, it got the reimbursement of $1,200 USD as compared to what lorlatinib or alectinib gets. Keytruda is the #1 selling cancer drug in India. In China, Keytruda doesn't even feature in top 5 IOs. All top 5 IOs are Chinese IO. Probably they have, because they get the right reimbursement from the reimbursement list. So I think we are getting there. Today Zydus has 2 new chemical entities which are not in oncology but in the other space going to the world. So many companies like Sun Pharma, Inta, so many companies are getting into that space. But I think we'll have to create an ecosystem where when we create innovation, it has to be captured as well. The value has to be created. I think we are far from that. We will get there. There are a lot of silver lining you mentioned. But I think I totally agree with your pain. We'll be happy to talk to you offline from there. But I think India is getting there. Just the small things we need to correct.
Just one query. You're talking about the ecosystem. For the last 15 years, there's a Prime Minister's Doctor Research Fellowship, which is partly industry sponsored. I am one of the recipients. Do you know how many pharma industries actually support a biologic research candidate? Last year there was none. I actually personally wrote to a company and there was to a vice president of a big pharma in India. So there's no response. Why is that so?
That's what I said. See, value has to be captured. Do we have an ecosystem? Even if we create a value, will we be able to capture the value?
Ecosystem is there. You see, what the pharma gets is a patent for what the researchers is doing. You're getting a free patent for what? Some 4 lakh rupees a year? That's all. And yet the pharma is not interested.
So maybe the day we will be able to capture the value, we will get there, sir.
So I think as a clinician, the main thing is that we should have some way in which the quality can be certified. Like for hospitals, there is something like a joint commission, it's not run by the government. So I think government-run quality certificates will have its own drawbacks, we know. But if a good pharma can come together, there is a body which they can capture the quality and they monitor it. It will make our life easier.
See, I mean, I think the drug regulator's job is to certify quality. At the end of the day, we have to fix it. What I think will help is if we see more activism from doctors or organizations like AMPOC, asking for more transparency from government, from the drug regulator. For example, just simply like forcing pharma companies to certify on their labeling whether a small molecule is bioequivalent and has gone through stability testing. It won't cost anything. It will make a world of a difference to practitioners. And I mean, maybe the pharma industry, between IPA and OPPI, some of them can volunteer to anyway do it. Certify that their drugs are bioequivalent. It will give you a one-up on your competition, because once doctors can see that difference, they will obviously pick a drug that they know has been tested for bioequivalence. Mr. Kumar and Dr. Puri, closing, sorry.
So, having worked in multinational and having worked in Indian companies, by the way, I'm a Novartis and AstraZeneca. So, just to add, whenever you look into a developed country, you have the bandwidth to experiment with innovation. And when you are a developing country or a business associate doing with this, you have to make the best out of whatever is your current strength. And that's where you saw us propagating faster onto biosimilar and these spaces. I think the moment a pharma is able to recognize that there is something which is getting on the table, the pharma is going to catch it. So somewhere down the line together, we need to create that ecosystem that this is the value proposition. While I'm speaking to you, if you see, go back into the history of Novartis, where I worked, or Roche, where you worked, it was basically the brainchild of those researchers. And subsequently, they were taken over by the Roche and the Novartis of the world. Even now, when I'm evaluating various molecules, like, Ashish has been to China, and many of us are trying to go to China and XYZ. It's because basically trying to find out something which could be an answer to the immunotherapy, which is very, very expensive in the world, or the CAR T therapies, which is very, very expensive at this point of time. So I think the point is, we are moving towards innovation. We do not have that kind of a luxury at this point of time. So we are very resource mindful. If you have something really wonderful and it can be a win-win situation, I love to partner and collaborate with you. But, this is the place where we see a challenge.
Like I said, all of us sitting here are Indians. So let's not talk about multinational or Indian pharma. My heart goes out to you, ma'am. It pains me because I know what innovation has done in this world. I lost my sister to cancer because trastuzumab was not there. And 2 years later, my own company made trastuzumab available in India. So I know what it means, innovation. We need to move forward to make sure we have an environment which is conducible for innovation. Otherwise, nobody's going to be able to solve for the problems that are coming. Let's remember COVID. Let's remember that time when pharma, academia, regulators, health agencies, international multilateral bodies all came together to make sure wherever the drug is, wherever the innovation is, let's scale it, let's make it available to all. Nobody was thinking about generics and biosimilars and all. Everybody came together. If with that rigor, we can create an environment of innovation, and then we can copy it. Because if people are not going to innovate, who will copy it? So let's just support innovation. And as doctors, all of us sitting here, when we grew up as doctors, we had this Hippocrates oath. If you can't do any good, don't do any harm. That's what I live with. That's what I hope all of us can go back. If we can't do good, let's not harm patients. Because they don't know what they're getting as a drug, as an innovation or generic. All they know is that they have left their life in your hand. And you decide quality. You decide efficacy. Be mindful of what you're going to do to that patient when you're giving a drug, innovator, generic, quality, to know that it's going to change his life forever. With that, ma'am, I believe that we'll see a day when researchers like you can be upgraded, because there's only 1% of budget of healthcare that goes in R&D. And I think if that stays the same, innovation gonna die. So let's make sure innovation survive, thrive, whether it's in India or it's any part of the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody. Sorry we've eaten into your tea time. Thank you panel. Great discussion, and I'm sure we can continue it offline. Thanks.
Thank you, doctors. And now